people on the dance floor.
It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.
What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. 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 I'm going downtown tonight. What's going on?
So, what is going on in and around the Wrexham area that I hear you chunder? What can we go and see this coming week, Andrew? Well, I shall tell you thus, right? I know it might sound early and it's come round very, very fast, but Theatre Clwyd is about to stage its pantomime. This year they are doing Dick Whittington. It kicks off on the 23rd of November. That's next Friday. And it always promises to be a real good night out, that one. It's always a rock and roll pantomime. And get tickets for that. I will give you all the details just after we hear from this fella. Now, coming up to Theatre Clwyd on the 24th of November, and that's just for one night only, and that's comedian Stephen K. Amos. Stephen K. Amos has been on the circuit now for over 25 years, and I had a deep joy on Thursday afternoon to have a bit of a chit-chat with him before he comes up to Theatre Clwyd with his new tour. If you're not sure who I'm talking about, here's a little bit of a flavour.
If you can't tell by the accent, my parents are from Nigeria. Any Nigerians in the house? Shut up. They arrived in London quite many years ago, and they've never been back to Nigeria. So last year, I took them back to Nigeria for the first time. It was quite exciting. We flew West African Airlines, or WAH! For short. You know when you're on a plane and they do the announcements? I thought it was quite amusing. Went, in the cockpit tonight is Ikefuma Olese Ngara, a keen fisherman and amateur pilot. If you're looking for your life jacket under your seat, there is no life jacket under your seat. In the case of emergencies, if you see me screaming and running, follow! Drop everything! Remove your shoes! And I arrived at the airport, immigration at Lagos International, looking like I do, a bit fly. Immigration officer takes one look at me and goes, you are wearing earrings. Are you a man or a woman? I was like, mate, I'm a bloke. He said, shame, with your broad shoulders and powerful legs, you make a beautiful lady. The things I've done for a visa.
So there you go, that is Mr. Stephen K. Amos. And, well, he's about to bring his tour. It's called Bouquets and Brickbats. And that's coming up to Theatre Clwyd on the 24th of November. That's next Saturday. And Stephen is a highly acclaimed stand-up comedian. And he's been hitting the road this autumn with this brand new tour. And as Brexit has just hit us, and brilliantly and incidentally, that on the time that I actually arranged for the interview with Stephen on Thursday. Well, you know what was happening on Thursday. It was all kicking off in the morning, and we had a chat about lunchtime, and well, this is how the conversation started. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Sit back, put the kettle on, and enjoy Mr. Stephen K. Amos on the Stage and Screen Show, Calon FM. Hello, Stephen.
Speaking.
Hi, it's Andy Snowden here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having a chat with me. You all right for a chit chat now?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. I appreciate you're quite busy.
Oh, thankfully I'm in my house with my feet up watching the government ministers tumbling down like dominoes.
Yeah, it's like Christmas Day for a comedian, isn't it?
It's just a gift, isn't it? It's one that just keeps giving. You know what to do next, do you?
Fantastic. I was wondering, actually, how do you have things already sort of like planned in your head, what you might say, or do you just have to wait and see what happens and then try and stick it in the show that night, or what?
Well, thankfully I do have stuff in my head that I've got planned and ready to go, but I also try and make sure I don't fall in the trap of just doing the regular Brexit Brexit and Trump stuff, because I'm sure we're all sick to death of hearing more about this. And we all hear it at the same time. So unless you've got a really good take on it, it's quite boring.
But it's yeah. Well, like I said, when I saw it on the news last night, I thought to myself, I'm quite pleased I'm speaking to you today, actually, because I mean, it's just amazing what's going on. Incredible.
It is. We're now a laughing stock. It's embarrassing.
Yes.
The thing.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it as well is that the people who orchestrated all of this aren't even the ones seeing it through. So, in a weird way, I actually do feel sorry for Theresa May.
Yeah.
I mean, who would like to be the Prime Minister at this point?
I know. And everyone's saying she's the worst Prime Minister ever. And I thought, well, anybody would be it now.
Absolutely. I wouldn't take that job, not if you paid me £1 million.
Oh, great. Anyway, you're coming up to Clwyd in a couple of weeks. That's it's your first time in North Wales, in Theatre Clwyd anyway, isn't it?
It is, actually. I can't even believe I've been doing this job for nearly 20-something years, and I've never been to Clwyd before, ever.
Yeah.
No idea what to expect.
Well, it's stunning. I'll just say that to you. It's a beautiful theatre. It's in a lovely setting, but
Okay.
I loved your thing that was on YouTube about the pronunciation of Clwyd. Your pronunciation of Clwyd is spot on, actually. Not many people can get it. Yeah, it's a lot of people. They say it in all kind of different ways, as you quite rightly point out. There's no vowels in it.
Yeah, there's no authority on how you say it.
Yeah.
I think that's a gamble there.
Yeah, but having someone like yourself come to Theatre Clwyd, there's a kind of there's a nice buzz about that kind of thing. Are you aware of that before you come?
To be honest, I'm not. My only thing is I like to travel around the country, the whole of the United Kingdom, and go to places I've never been to before. You kind of do get lost and a bit spoiled if we just stick to the big cities. And I think it's quite nice to be able to go out to other parts of the world that you've never been to explore and experience a different side of the country.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I toured with a show back in the 90s, and I was two things that surprised me. One, how kind of relatively small the country is, but two, how different sort of sense of humours change from one town to the next. It's
yes, I'm finding people, from my experience, people in the north of England. I've got a very big tradition of northern men, working men's clubs, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They kind of know what they want. People down south in England, they get spoiled with a lot of theatre and comedy, so they're a bit more kind of reserved and go on, make me laugh.
Yeah.
And then there are other places that are slightly more out there, a bit more remote, who are just very, very pleased and enthusiastic that performers and theatre shows and singers and bands make an effort and travel over there. So that energy is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you find that once you've become successful, is the pressure easier or is it greater?
I think that falls in two camps, really. It can be easier in a way when all your fans come and see you. They like what you do anyway, so they're always going to be supportive.
Yeah.
Or you do that thing where people don't really go to comedy that often, but they go to a big event, like someone playing a stadium. They go there because it's part of an event, you know. Also, it's quite difficult because if you're kind of trying out new stuff, there's an expectation that you're going to be funny. And if you don't deliver for a variety of reasons, people get really annoyed.
Yeah.
So never take anything for granted is my philosophy. I'm always very grateful that people come out and want to see me and what I do. And as long as you meet me halfway by being there, I'll deliver the goods.
Fantastic. I remember I heard Frank Skinner saying a while ago now that you can only be that guy off the telly for 5 minutes and then they'll find you out if you're not very good.
Well, he's absolutely right, because, you know, with television there comes lovely editing. You can get the chance to do it 2 or 3 times to get it right.
Yeah.
In a live situation, you know, the audience within the first 3 to 5 minutes, they know if they're in good company or not.
Yeah, and I mean, I became like millions of others became aware of you thanks to Live at the Apollo, and that show is a fantastic showcase, isn't it? Now for new comedians, it's incredible, actually.
I mean, when that show started, I mean, there was literally no kind of comedy as we know it on television.
Yeah,
people were saying the whole genre was dead. You know, apart from seeing, you know, people like Frank and Saunders, the young ones, and all that wave of people. And Lee Evans. There's nobody really coming through.
Yeah.
And then somebody thought one day, I think, we need to fill a slot with this show. They got Lively Apollo, one man, microphone. And what they did was, at that time when it first started, they went around the comedy circuit and picked the guys who'd been doing it for like 10, 15 years, on top of their game, who people hadn't really necessarily heard of. And then, of course, it was a massive success.
Yeah.
In fact, when I did it the first time, people assumed I was a newcomer into comedy without any realization that I'd spent so many years on the comedy circuit.
Yeah.
And going up to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival since, I think it was 96 was my first time up there. And just trying your trade and then building a loyal live following. Of course, TV exposure, boom.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you about Edinburgh, actually, because as you've just pointed out there, you've been going every year for as long as you've been doing comedy, I suppose, so back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I've never actually been to the Edinburgh Fringe. Is it very much different to a normal gig?
Absolutely. You have to go because it is by far the largest arts festival in the world. It's not just comedy, it's not just theatre, it's music and dance and all sorts of things. There's even art. Also, people from around the world in terms of audiences and also performers descend on this majestic city. And what it does for comedians, when you first got there, you do an hour show, and normally when you work in the comedy circuit, the most you'll do is 20 minutes or an extended set, 40 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So it's the first time in your career you'll get to do an hour every day in the same room to hone your craft and to hone the show. It's a great learning curve.
Yeah.
And, when I started going to Edinburgh, it was very, very much a kind of a trade fair, if you like. I got my first international touring opportunities from going to Edinburgh. I got my first TV job by appearing in the Edinburgh Festival. So yeah, it was a lot. It was kind of make or break for a lot of people.
But the stories you hear, it sounds terrifying. I mean, one of your tales that you tell about doing a gig at 2:00 in the morning to a load of drunk Scots. Yeah. I loved your baboon story. And the thing about that story, the baboon story, is I just hope it's true. I don't even care if it isn't. But when we went to Florida over the summer, and every time when we went down Disney, every time we saw one of the monkey characters, I just shouted baboon, and it irritated my kids to death. They were going,
I'm very pleased that I had a hand in that. It does bring about so many interesting tales. Lots of things happen. It's very unpredictable. Your body clock changes because there are shows all day. And so when I first started doing Edinburgh, I was doing my own show. I think it was at 8:00, and then I was doing other spots in other shows until the wee hours.
Yeah.
It's a captive audience, and you're there for the month. You might as well take it all in. And
of course, it's been well publicised now that back in 2006 you did a gig where you basically just came out during a show on live on stage, and that's almost like the best place to do it, is it not?
But you know what? It didn't even occur to me that was what was happening, to be honest, because I've not been in as opposed to coming out to any of my friends or family. I've always been a very open and honest person. But then I at that moment, something happened. I saw a friend of mine on the news who'd been murdered in a homophobic attack in London. And that really annoyed me, that in this big metropolis there are still people out there who are prepared to attack a complete stranger to the point of death.
Yep.
So I did this show. I thought I need to stand up and be counted. And within the show, I was saying, by the way, I'm attracted to men. And the response was so incredible. I hadn't even banked on it because, I hadn't had any training in, media relations or PR. And I just came out of my mouth. And suddenly it was a big coming out show. And in my mind, it really wasn't. But as a result of that show, I was asked to appear on all sorts of political programs, current affairs programs, to talk about this one subject. And I was like, oh my goodness, now it's becoming to define me. And I didn't really want that because there's lots of elements that define who I am.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So it was an off-the-cuff kind of, you just thought that night, I'm just going to just say it.
Yeah,
right.
I was so in the moment, and the show was going particularly well, and it just sort of came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And so it stayed in the show, and I was genuinely taken aback by the gasps and the kind of horror in the room of people going, no, really?
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me.
Yeah. Yeah, but I suppose now, even what is it now? 12 years after the event, that kind of thing's just changed so much now that if anybody said that, you just go, "Oh right, it's not a big deal anymore."
And I think there's a reason for that. I think because of the advent of certain elements of social media, we've gone from the days 30 odd years ago where comedians on TV back then were all about sexist jokes, homophobic jokes, even racist jokes.
Yeah.
But now, those people in those communities are also comics in the fore, and they've also got a voice. So you can't get away with that anymore.
Yeah. I come from pretty much the same generation as you, so yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. But for you, two out of three of those things, those jokes were directed at you. That must have been quite a scary environment to put yourself in.
Well, to be honest, I didn't go to comedy clubs in the late 70s or 80s. If I saw comedy on television, I normally would have switched it off because it wouldn't really speak to me.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, it was pure fluke that I ended up being part of this actual industry, because through growing up and, my family's experience, it was not a welcoming environment.
No. And you've got a huge family, I was reading. Are any of them in show business, or is it just you?
Thankfully it's just me. Everyone else is into art or not art, is into science.
Yeah.
They're mathematical people. They're kind of, they're whiz kids, biology, science, chemistry and physics. And I was not. I was very much drawn to the arts and in fact law was the thing I was going to go into.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I didn't have to do that. Didn't have to wear that wig and that gown.
No, but you did graduate as a criminologist, didn't you?
I did indeed, yes. And yes, but I think that's probably given me my analytical mind.
Yeah.
I kind of like to look from the outside at everything and question everything and to try and find the funny in situation.
Obviously people are going to be shocked by that in the same way as they were shocked when they found out Harry Hill was a doctor. But as you say, if you've got a more intelligent brain, let's say, then it kind of... I suppose it was a bit like when you found out that Rick Mail and Ade Edmondson were graduates of anything. They were so...
Yes, I think it's just that inquisitive mind, where we are normally described as outsiders because you want to be on the outside looking in, the odd man out, the person who's always opposite the status quo and kind of thinking, why are we doing it like this? And we observe things, and I find funny stuff all the time, and things that make me laugh. And sometimes I look a bit strange when I'm walking down the street laughing heartily to myself.
I do the same.
Yeah, not a good look.
I have to sometimes pretend I'm talking to somebody on a hands-free.
So I wear those white things that come out of your ears, and there's nothing in them.
Yes, absolutely. Did you ever work as a solicitor, or did you just jack it in?
Thankfully not. I went travelling when I finished, and I went to New York to visit a friend of mine, and who was from London, and somebody else from England was also visiting him at the same time, who I didn't know, and we were there for a whole weekend, had a great time, and at the end of the weekend she said, "You're really funny, have you ever thought of doing comedy?" And I said, "Don't be ridiculous." And she said, "No, I actually run a comedy club in Leicester, and I'm going to open one in London, and I want you to come and do stuff for me."
Yeah.
And that is exactly how it started.
But that must be how it starts for so many people, but it sounds so amazing that's how simple it is.
Well, do you know what? I'm not sure. I think that some of my colleagues have always known they want to be comedians, who've always been, brilliantly minded and stuff. And particularly nowadays, when now you can see that comics do get to become famous once again, there are now courses that you can do to learn how to be a stand-up. Even at university, there are courses looking into the history of comedy and stand-up comedy. It's quite extraordinary.
That is extraordinary.
Yeah, these things weren't... I'm sure they can teach you maybe technique and whatever, but, there are two schools of thought. There's those guys who've got funny bones naturally, and those guys who've got really brilliant minds that learn how to express themselves comedically on stage.
Yeah. Because I was going to actually ask you, did you think it was something you could learn? But evidently...
I think if you've got performance skills, I think you could kind of learn. But there are some people who say to me, "Oh my goodness, I can't imagine doing that." Who literally freeze when they're on stage or they shake.
Yeah.
It's not for those people. Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
But you've worked as an actor as well, and that is something you can learn.
That is something a lot of people train for. I didn't train to be an actor. I've always liked the idea of acting, of pretending to be somebody who's completely far removed from myself. And they mainly come through from being a stand-up. You know, I was asked to do one show, main show, really, in the West End, which was very exciting because I actually turned it down in the first instance. I was thinking, I don't want to be on the West End stage doing somebody else's lines for 6 months. My own line. Literally every single person I knew went, "Are you insane? It's the West End."
Yeah.
Everybody wants to, and it was the best 6 months I've ever spent.
Wonderful.
With wonderful people.
Did you fit into being a West End Wendy?
Oh my God, I was believe. I had no idea that people send flowers for the first night. I noticed all my other cast members were getting flowers, so I literally rang all my friends and went, "You better send me flowers." Extraordinary. In fact, on the opening night of the show, the main star of the show was Christian Slater, and when we finished the show, we were all taking a bow. My friend runs down from the stalls with a massive bunch of flowers right in front of the stage. Christian Slater obviously goes and pick them up. My friend goes, "No." That was really a great moment I'll never forget.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. And can I just ask you about your Radio 4 sitcom that's called What Does the K Stand For? Brilliantly, because I'm presuming that's a question you've been asked only a million times. What does the K stand for?
I should reveal that at another. I did it in the show actually, so I think it would spoil it.
Right.
I think it's really out there, but yeah, it's something I've been asked a million times.
Yeah.
Hence the title of the sitcom, co-written by the wonderful Jonathan Harvey, who is an amazing playwright and wrote an amazing musical about Dusty Springfield, also a writer on Coronation Street, and we're very, very similar in terms of what we find funny. So it's quite nice to be able to do a show on the radio that we record in front of a live audience that is essentially about my life.
Yeah. And were your family all on board with that? Were they cool with that?
Well, you know, not that I run things past them, but because obviously with a comedy show, I took a bit of dramatic license, as it were. Yeah. So I'm sure a couple of them would have gone, "Well, that didn't happen quite like that." On the radio, innit? On the radio. And it's a laugh.
Oh, wonderful. And one last thing before I let you go. I'm a Celebrity's on Sunday. Have you ever been asked to do it? Are you ever interested in doing that sort of thing?
I at this instant, I can't imagine myself appearing on a show like that. But you know what? Who knows? I know a few people who've been on there, and some have had great experiences. Some have had horrific experiences.
Yeah.
But my own thing is, because it's filmed 24/7, and you've got no control over the edit, and I'm not a fan of being starved. I'm not a fan of any other sensory deprivation. I'm not a fan of eating creepy crawlies. Yeah. I'm not a fan of eating certain parts of an animal's anatomy. But you know what? Never say never. Checkbook is correct, then bring it on.
Stephen, it's been an absolute treat to speak to you. Thanks ever so much for that.
Oh, you're more than welcome. The only thing I would like to plug, though, is I've got, on Audible, I've got a talk show that we recorded at the Edinburgh Fringe. It's called the Stephen K. Amos Talk Show, and the first series went out in August. The second series is coming out at the end of this month, and it's good fun.
And is that, what's that, audio book or podcast, is that?
It's on Audible, so it's going to be either you download it from Audible or you sign up to Audible and you get you get it for free if you sign up for 6 months or something. And it's just an audio talk show.
Cool.
Again, in front of a live audience.
Oh, I look forward to listening to that. That sounds fantastic.
Why, thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. I'll look forward to seeing you in Theatre Clwyd.
I can't wait to get to Clwyd.
You take care of yourself.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.
Taking my time 'cause I ain't in a hurry. Not a lot else to do. I can lay back.
So there we have it. That is Stephen K. Amos, who's coming up to Theatre Clwyd on the 24th of November. That's next Saturday. Stay tuned for the deets and the dates for everything else that's going on up at Theatre Clwyd this Christmas time. It's looking good.
Walking the dog, get me up in the morning. Johnny don't like me late.
So there you go then, that is Stephen K. Amos, who is coming up to Theatre Clwyd on the 24th of November, that's next Saturday. But also as well, kicking off on the 23rd of November, the pantomime, running until the 19th of January 2019, and that is the brand new rock and roll panto, written this year by a friend of the show, Mr. Christian Patterson, we all remember him. And also as well, this show welcomes back firm favourite Philip Harris. If you'd like to get tickets for anything going on up at Theatre Clwyd, girls and boys, all you need to do is phone the box office, I suppose, 01352 701 521. That's 01352 701 521. That's to go see Stephen K. Amos this coming weekend.